Let's talk about where we are with the latest on our justice system. David Shipley is a writer and researcher on prison and justice issues and joins us now. Very good morning to you, David.
How are you?
Thank you, very well indeed. Thank you so much for joining us. We're coping in the heat and the air conditioning is finally sort of kicked in. But the stats out today from the Ministry of Justice at 9:30 this morning showing that violence is rife in our prisons. We've known that certainly for a long time. There's attacks at Axel Rudolph, people burning oil, burning water, boiling water and the like. But the rate of prisoner-on-prisoner assaults in men's prisons increasing by 11% in 2024, up by 13% when it's prisoners on prison staff over the same period. And this is being put down to just incredibly overcrowded prisons, understaffing, under-resourced, under-experienced prison officers, and 99 point God knows what percent capacity. What do you make of those latest statistics?
Yeah, I mean, the increase in violence is sadly unexpected, as expected. Our prisons get more and more violent every year, and that is terrible for prisoners. And it's also terrible for rehabilitation, because actually, if you're scared of being attacked by the man you share a cell with or on the wing, your ability to emotionally or psychologically engage with rehabilitation programs, with training, with education is really difficult. If you're spending a whole night sleeping or trying to sleep terrified, you won't be able to study the next day. It's also terrible for staff. The staff are suffering an increasing rate of quite serious assaults as well.
Yeah.
And I was really struck when I went to the Prison Officers Association conference about 6 weeks ago. Every officer there had been assaulted again and again and again. It was just
on what planet would we accept that in any of our workplaces as a normal state of affairs? Now, of course, there are particularly violent men behind bars. I suppose you're never going to get rid of that violence completely. But is it just about overcrowding? And what is it? I mean, you're a former prisoner yourself, aren't you? What is it about overcrowding which leads to a greater number of attacks?
Well, in this study today that they've released, the MOJ had specifically looked at doubling up in cells. So when you have a cell which is really supposed to be for one person, they put two men in there. And that can be a real source of tension. You're talking about a space roughly the size of a car parking space. And in there you've got a bunk bed. 2 men in there. Yeah, 2 men living in there, the bunk bed, your toilet's there, you eat your food there, you live there maybe 22 hours a day.
Yeah.
Not many relationships, even really harmonious ones, would get through that without some argument. So you can imagine you put 2 strangers who might be dealing with a lot of their own issues.
Drug issues, mental health.
There might be drug issues.
Yeah.
And they might be very contradictory principles. I'll never forget once in Wandsworth when I was there, they put a man who was a vegan, and we knew he was a vegan because he had vegan tattooed on his neck, in a cell with an older chap who wasn't a vegan. And on that first night, the older chap went to eat his food, which had meat in it. The vegan said, "You're not eating that around me, I can smell it." And the older guy said, "I'm going to eat my food, I'm not bothering you." And that became a huge fight, and the older man ended up being hospitalised. And that's the sort of friction points that can come. You have a lot of people with very poor impulse control in prison.
Yeah,
so it's not,
that's why they're there. And again,
yes.
the solution is better prisons. And again, we want people to be rehabilitated and to not, and to get educated and to get off drugs and things like that. We're going to have to provide better prison facilities, and we can't have them locked up 22, 23 hours a day. We can't have so few inexperienced staff dealing with. No one should go to work expecting routinely to be attacked.
They shouldn't. And if you look at the rates of violence prison officers suffer, they're appalling. And the rates of poor mental health, even there's some data around sort of suicide rates amongst prison officers, they're really bad. And I think that's a big issue. It's not just overcrowding. It's that the prison service lost a lot of the more experienced staff over the last decades, essentially because of Tory efforts to drive down the pensions liability. So they pushed out a lot of the more experienced staff. So if you go back 10 years ago, 2/3 of prison officers had been on the wing for more than 10 years. Yeah. Now I think it's less than 20%. So
that's
if you're
really
a new
telling.
officer,
They've got the experience, they've got the gravitas, they've got the respect. They can manage people. We all know it's even in school, which is largely crowd control now. The teacher who could walk into the room and everyone goes, "Ooh, uh-oh." It's very different, isn't it? Yeah. Can I get to another topic, though, as well? I just want to talk to you. There's a report out today about Notting Hill Carnival, and in a letter to the Culture Secretary, the organisers of the annual summer festival held in West London say they need extra money to go ahead because of risks compromising public safety. They need extra funding for security, for the police. It's already costing an absolute fortune, millions in public money, and yet we still have, mass rates of violence, 8 stabbings last year, 2 people who died died in the violence last year's carnival. Do you think that we should provide that extra funding?
No. I mean, I looked up the data for this before I came on, actually, and the Metropolitan Police estimate it cost them almost £12 million to police Carnival in 2023. It's a huge amount of overtime.
Are there other areas of London not being policed properly at that time?
Also, right, and it is a violent event. You know, there was a mother who was murdered while her daughter was standing next to her last
on the
time.
family day.
On the family day, yeah, and I think really it does draw in a lot of violence and a lot of criminality. I think they probably just need to move, if they want to keep doing it, to ticket it in Hyde Park with proper security.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, it's certainly, I think, what a lot of people who live around Notting Hill would like. I used to live near there. People board up their homes. I mean, the public urination, people having sex in on your stairwell, the violence. I mean, I used to go many, many years ago, and then it got so overcrowded. I remember being stuck in a bit. We felt like we were being kettled. I genuinely worried that I was not going to be able to breathe. I thought we are 2 minutes away from a mass casualty event. I'm out of here.
Yeah, no, I think so. And I think there's, people will make arguments about heritage and this sort of thing, but actually, at some point, you've got to make a decision on risk to life, to property, and just the cost. And 12 million quid a year, when we've got a really financially, struggling police force at the moment, it just seems a very bad.
I wonder what other
money.
event would get that sort of funding, let alone more of it. David Shipley, really good to talk to you. Thank you so much, writer and researcher on prison and justice issues.